Hello, I'll call the meeting to order. Thanks all for joining us. May we have a roll call, please, Allison?
Commissioner
Here.
Commissioner Bryant.
Here.
Commissioner Felios.
Here.
Vice Chair Davis.
Here.
Chair Summer.
Here. Great. So our next item is minutes approval. Are there any commission suggestions or edits that you'd like to see?
No.
Not hearing any. Okay.
Well, I have all the files saved on my desktop.
Does
too,
anyone
so I didn't
have,
to worry about
from the public, have a comment on
it. For
this
some reason,
item?
It's locking.
Minutes. Not hearing any. So is there any commission discussion? And if there's not, would anyone like to make a motion? So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. We will vote, Allison.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant.
Yes.
Commissioner Felios.
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis.
Yes.
Chair Summer.
Yes. All right, minutes have been approved. We're on to item 4, oral communications from the public. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and state law prohibits the commission from acting on non-agenda items. And also staff will not be responding to any questions or comments. Thank you. Would anyone like to make a comment on an item not on the agenda? In the room? Not seeing any hands. Is there anyone online who'd like to make a comment on a non-agenda item? All right. So now we are on to item 5, new business. And we have 2 heritage tree removal application appeals. And I'd like to just go over the process since they're both fairly similar. So staff will present a report. The appellant will have 10 minutes to present or speak. So that's the person that filed the appeal on the tree item. Then the commission will have opportunity, the applicant, the original person who filed for the tree removal will have up to 10 minutes to present and speak. The commission will then have the opportunity to ask questions of any of the presenters, including staff, the appellant, and the applicant. Then there'll be public comment, and depending on how many folks wish to comment, you'd have no more than 3 minutes. And if we have a lot of people who want to speak, we may shorten that time just so we all get home before we turn into pumpkins. After that, we would close the public comment. The appellant would have 2 additional minutes to make final comments. And the applicant would also have 2 additional minutes to make any final comments. And then after that time, the commission would begin deliberations and make a motion. So that's the process we're going to use for both of these. And so moving to item 5.1. This is the heritage tree removal application appeal for 1569 Allison Avenue. Would staff like to make presentation?
Thank you, Commissioner. Russ Hanson, Urban Forest Manager within CSD. First slide, just 1569 Allison is the tree that we're here to look at this evening. In particular, I'll just call out the photograph where you can see some of the canopy that overhangs a portion of the garage and the house, as well as the neighboring property. So that would be just the only real reference on that slide. Next, it's details on the tree itself. The tree is a Cedrus deodara, otherwise known as a deodar cedar. It measured out at approximately 40 inches in diameter at shoulder height. We estimate it to be about 60 feet in height overall. In general, fairly good health, fair structure. You can somewhat see in the photograph that, my mouse doesn't show up on the screen, but towards the top of the tree, you can see that there's a few codominant stems where there's 3 or 4 stems that are going up at the very top, but didn't see anything that was inherently bad. But that was the reason for the fair structure versus a good structure. It's just there's some slight little issues there. So in general, the applicant themselves listed the reasons for removal, that it was interfering with utility services, i.e. power, gas, sewer, or water lines. The tree was growing in close proximity to structures, and causing damage or will cause damage in the near future. That the tree is, excuse me. The tree is causing mechanical damage to the house and the roots will damage the foundation over time, as well as they supplied a house inspection report that said the tree disrupts drainage. No clarity on specifically what drainage was involved, but next slide here, you can see again, I've got a picture of those codominant stems I was talking about towards the upper canopy. Again, you can see 3, 4, 5 of them as it gets towards the top, where cedars typically have one apically dominant leader to them. This one has multiple. We weren't able to determine if it was because the tree had been previously topped or not, but it didn't necessarily look like that to us. Again, without doing a full inspection up using an aerial lift to get into the upper canopy, that's not something that we typically do. Photograph on the right, when they talk about drainage, I'm not sure. Again, it wasn't too clear to us whether that was just drainage downspouts and there was some kind of subdrain, or if it had to do with the sewer lateral or the water meters. So I've supplied that photograph so that you get a general idea that sewer lateral is running on the left side of the tree. It would appear that it runs up to the house that direction, but again, we don't know specifically if it angles or otherwise enters the home in a different location. And then similarly, the water meter is just off to the right side of the tree. In neither case was any information provided that showed that they'd done any repairs recently or otherwise to either of those utilities. So ultimately, in making our findings, we decided that the tree was at health, the tree health and vigor was good. Regular pruning, we felt, would be able to reduce end weights and provide the structure clearance that would be needed to kind of reduce the likelihood of future limb failures. We can never prevent limb failures, but just standard reduction on cedars typically reduces that by, I'll say, 50 to 60% at a minimum if it's done properly. Beyond that, no evidence currently of structure or foundation damage was evident to us or was provided. No evidence of sewer or water line damage was evident at the time of inspection. And then lastly, future damage to the foundation and sewer and water line, we felt like it could be mitigated through root pruning or otherwise. Go back to this first shot again, just to provide some reference. From where the stem of the tree itself is, we're approximately 16 feet to, or excuse me, 20 feet to the property owner's house, that front room that's right there. The neighboring property to the left side or towards the top of the screen is approximately 16 feet. So we felt both 16 and 20 feet was sufficient that we could get in there, do root pruning without significantly compromising the structure or the health of the tree.
All right. Thank you. So are there any commissioner questions? All right, and I think it's time for, well, it's time for public comment. And you'd be able to ask that at this time. So I invite people up to the DS and we would really appreciate it if you would share your name, but you don't have to. Has anyone given?
Time quite yet? The applicant
Applicant.
or the appellant, sorry.
Well, the commissioner questions.
And there were no commissioner questions.
Yeah, you're right, but that was not, okay, I was just following the thing you gave me. Okay, all right, sorry about that. The appellant has 10 minutes to speak.
Should I stay here to speak?
Look on the back.
The appellant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
All right, thank you, guys. So I'm the owner of this house and I filed application for this tree removal. And because it was denied, I'm also the appellant who appealed this denial. So basically, in addition to the bullet points we just showed, like the reason why I want to remove this tree, another major concern for me is a safety hazard. This is a safety concern for my family, for my neighbors, and also the community. So I think everybody is very clear to show this picture, satellite picture, that this tree is located in my front yard. The diameter is roughly like 3 feet in diameter and over like 40 to 60 feet tall, which is very large. And the canopy of the tree covers my neighbor's roof, my roof, my garage roof, as well as the sidewalk of the street. Also, it is like roughly 15 feet away from the neighbor's roof, my neighbor's property, 20 meters away from the garage, 50 meters away from my bedroom, as well as like 50 meters away from the sidewalk of the street. Okay, so this is where the tree is located. Okay, now I call my front yard because this tree is located in my front yard and it's so big and so poorly structured. Now I call my front yard to be a dead zone, and I told my kids to stay away from that zone. The reason I did that because if you can see how large those dead branches are, I have some photos here. So this is one of the falling branch, which is on the ground. So the diameter of this one, I have my hand here. So diameter is roughly 4 inch and the length is over 12 feet. This is just one of them falling on the ground.
If you'd like to pass those
Sure.
around, feel free.
Yeah, so these are our photos. Yeah,
To the
To the
commissioners.
commissioners.
Yeah.
thank you. All right, I also have a table here to show those large falling branches, failures. So the first one on the ground is like 4 inches in diameter, length is 12 feet. It is on the ground in my front yard. The second one is like 5 inch in diameter, it's a little larger, and 10 to 12 feet length. It is still hanging in the lower branches in my tree, on the tree. The third one is 6 inch, even larger and even longer, 15 to 16 feet in length. It is hanging, this is the latest failure, which is just showed up in the last heavy winds. It is hanging in the middle of the tree, which is like 20 feet above the ground. I also have 2 more, which one of them is 4 inch, 5 inch, and all of those are above like 12 feet length. So this 4 of this is still hanging on the canopy, which is on the branches, not falling to the ground. But I believe someday it will fall to the ground. It's very dangerous. One of them, the first one I show in the picture, is already laying on the ground, 4 inches diameter, 12 feet long. So given that, if you can imagine how big this branch is, I can't imagine how that's fall on top of some people's head, and that will definitely kill people. And especially when there is heavy wind, which is very common in the winter season like this, I can hear there is something falling, just something falling on my roof every few days. I mean, this is very terrifying in the middle of the night. And I mean, this dead branches, these failures are killing people. And this is no joke. That's why I told my kids never go to the front yard because it's so dangerous to do that. And also over the past 1 year, I have been using my garage door as an entrance to my home simply because it's too dangerous to go to use the front door, because if you want to use the front door, you have to pass the canopy of the tree, and so dangerous. Considering how large those dead branches are, I mean, it's killing people. I don't want anyone to be risk, right? I take care of the safety of my family, my kids, as well as my neighbor's safety, as well as everyone who use the sidewalk on the property, because imagine that you walk your dog or you just do some work in the sidewalk in the evening. If something big like that falling on top of your head, that's unbelievable, too dangerous, right? So that's why I said that the major concern of the tree is the safety hazard. It is a safety hazard for my family, my neighbor, and the community. That's why I said this must be removed. And I have the arborist report to support my statement. The conclusion recommendation from my arborist report says this tree should be removed. This tree should be removed. And that is clearly stated on my arborist report. Okay, so let me make it clear. So this tree must be removed because it's too dangerous. And I will pay for that, basically. I will pay for the removal. And I'm the owner, I will pay for the removal. And I don't want anybody to be in a danger, right? Be in danger. Okay, that's basically all my statement. Yeah, so it's basically, oh yeah, another one, my wife told me, yeah, so once this tree is removed, I'm not a hater of the trees, by the way. I love trees. So once I remove the tree, my plan is to plant another 5 new trees with manageable size in the same position in my front yard. With manageable size, I think the safety hazard will be minimized and it will be safe to my family as well as neighbors and everyone in the.
Actually, I have add to one more thing. So Basically, you see the tree actually touches the roof of our neighbors as well. So their entrance, they happen to have a side door as well. So every time they went out, they are still also under the same tree. So I think it's also put our neighbor on danger.
Yeah, would you mind showing the satellite photo again?
I'll give you back your.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so my neighbors over there, they no longer use their front door. Their door is actually in the corner of that. So every time they will use that as their walk to their door. It's basically underneath the canopy, which is very dangerous for them as well. Yeah, that's what my wife said. Thank you. That's all our statement. Thank you.
Since you're also the applicant,
Yeah.
you could have longer if you wish to speak longer, but I
Uh,
think you may have already said everything you wanted to say.
yeah, I already said everything I want.
All right, so this would be an opportunity then for the commission to ask questions of any of the presenters, including staff or the applicant. Any questions?
I guess I would just ask a question. What kinds of maintenance have you done on the tree over time?
I just bought this house in 2023, right? Last year. Last year, August. So I moved in for 1 year. Yeah. A little above 1 year.
Have you had any tree maintenance companies?
I don't know because I just stay here. I don't know if the previous owner have made anything. Yeah, that's the original condition I got.
I have a question. Did you have your arborist advise you on how you might be able to prune or weed a tree?
Yeah, I read the report, the recommendations, I think it's also in the attachment, right? So the recommendation is to remove the tree. So my concern is that this tree is so big, even if you make any pruning, right? Nobody can guarantee there is no more falling branches. Because it's so big, any branches from the tree, even if it's a tiny branch from the big tree, that will be still too dangerous people. That's still killing people. So I don't believe that any pruning will help us reduce that risk because it's so big. I mean, nobody can guarantee it will no longer have any fallen branches in the future, right? Even with the pruning. So, but any branches falling, it will kill people. That's too dangerous for me and my family. That's why I say, okay, I don't think that the pruning can solve the problem.
Okay. Any other questions? Now we're ready to open the public comment on the 1569 Allison Avenue. Is anyone, you can feel free to sit down now.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And you will have a opportunity at the end also to speak again, sir. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak regarding 1569 Allison?
Good evening, commissioners and city staff. My name is Hala El-Shawani. I'm a longtime resident of Mountain View. I wasn't planning on giving any input or comment on this, but it's sort of really related to all the mature heritage trees that we have in the city. They get big, they need to be maintained, they need to be pruned. They really, when a homeowner or, a person purchases a home, they have to understand it's a responsibility that they have. These mature heritage trees are green assets. They're an important part of our community and they need to be taken care of. So I really hope that the owner, Allison Street Tree, would consider that, because I've lived in many houses with a lot of mature trees, and of course, yes, without maintenance and inspections regularly, sure, yeah, limbs can fall down and they can hurt people, but that's how, it comes with the house. It's something you maintain just like you maintain your plumbing or your electrical system or your structural integrity. And so it's part of that property. And I think maintenance is very, very important. Yeah, it's what keeps all these trees intact so they don't keep, the branches don't keep falling on us when we take walks all over the city. So I urge you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other folks in the audience that wish to comment on this item? Are there any online folks that wish to comment on this?
Yes, we have 5 right now. So first we have Celia Pamer.
Hi, Celia.
Hi. I'd just like to make a comment that sort of on that same vein that when you buy something living, you buy the responsibility to care for it. And just like you wouldn't put down a puppy that hadn't been poorly trained, we shouldn't be taking down trees just because they are a challenge to maintain. These trees serve the community in many ways, and when we buy part of the earth, we buy the responsibility to care for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Next we have Bruce England.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, thank you. Bruce England, Wisman Station Drive. Just echoing the points that have already been made, that when we buy our homes, we do buy what's part of the property, including the very important canopy infrastructure that serves the entire city and serves wildlife and all of that. In terms of safety and health, biodiversity and tree canopy is also necessary for the health of all of us in our community, including the homeowners and their families. I wrote a letter on the other item, the other tree removal request, but the points that I made in that letter are applicable here. So just wanted to voice my support for keeping this tree and any other tree. I also want to say that a lot of times members of the community have to come to these meetings and voice support for trees. And it has a tendency to pit neighbors against neighbors. It's really unfortunate. I would truly like to see the city establish a robust policy that says, by and large, you just can't remove these trees. Hopefully that will happen through the upcoming biodiversity strategy and urban forest plan. So I'm looking forward to seeing some inclusion in that plan around topics like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Next we have Rashmi.
Hi, Rashmi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I just also wanted to voice my support for keeping the tree standing for all the reasons that everyone who's just spoke gave. And I also wanted to second kind of Bruce's point about, requiring neighbors to come out and speak for the trees every time there's a heritage tree that's in danger, and focusing on having that be part of the upcoming biodiversity plan, strengthening that ordinance that we already have and the enforcement of the ordinance. But yes, please keep this tree standing for all the reasons everyone else gave. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person.
Next we have Maya.
Hi, Maya.
Hello there. I am a resident of you and would like to voice keeping the trees. I think that there have already been a lot of trees that have been cut down in Mountain View, and that's one of the really special things about our city is how many trees we have, and I think that it's really important to protect them. And I also just wanted to mention that this was the tree's home before it was our home. And yeah, if you bought your house recently, then this tree was already that large before you made the decision to buy the house. And yeah, the trees take really good care of us. They give us oxygen, and we need to take good care of them in return. So yeah, in this world where so much nature has already been destroyed, we have to stand up to protect what little we have left. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person.
That concludes online public comment.
Right. Thank you.
My comment?
So.
Yeah, we have one more person, I think, in person.
Oh, I'm sorry.
that wanted to-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Sunil. I'm the next applicant.
for the next tree removal, but I'm gonna speak in favor of the appellant here, like, so we have had the same tree, a really, really large tree, redwood tree, as you will see the next session, right after. And we have actually been maintaining that tree a lot. Like, so we have had an arborist come in and prune the tree every year in the last 4 years. And despite all that, even after, this pruning, branches still fall. Really, really large branches still fall, even despite the pruning. And they are hazards. I totally agree with them that, they are hazards. I've had, also, couldn't sleep at night because, I'm worried about with my kids, branches could fall. So it's the pruning just not sufficient enough. Like, so they just, so I'm just want to speak in that favor. Like, I agree that, I also love trees. I have had worked with Canopy, which is a nonprofit, and had two new trees planted in the front yard. But like some of these large trees are really, really hazardous, and they are a huge liability for the homeowners. So again, even though I love trees, I love redwood trees. Like I'm a big fan. But depending on they have a place, and so there are some places where they just don't go. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to comment on this? All right, we will close the public comment, and the applicant will have a chance to restate or make any final comments.
All right, thanks for the comments from many people. I want to say that, so I'm not a tree hater. I love these trees, but again, the tree itself is too large, and the pruning cannot simply solve the problem. And I want to make it clear that, so if this tree cannot be removed, so who will be responsible for any risk, any injury of the pedestrians, or my neighbors, or my family, right? So pruning cannot guarantee that. Pruning cannot completely 100% remove the risk of a fallen branch this big, right? This big branches large like this will kill people, not even say like kids, right? Running in the front yard. So I don't think anybody can see that it is guaranteed that no fallen branches anymore in the future, even with the pruning. And I want to make clear that, I mean, I still don't know who will be responsible for that if this tree cannot be removed. Yeah, I mean, not only to the humans who live there or like pedestrian over there, also to the property, my property, as well as my neighbor's property, right? Or those people parking on the street, right? So if sometimes, I mean, you see that that tree is even closer to my neighbor's property than me. If it brought any damage to my neighbor's property, who will pay for that? I mean, who will be responsible for that? I don't want to, I cannot be responsible for that because I spend my time, I come here, I submit application to remove the tree to minimize the risk of this scenario, right? I want to minimize the risk for myself, for my family, for the pedestrians safety, and also my neighbor's safety, right? So that's basically my statement. So I want to make clear that I still don't know, I don't understand if the tree cannot be removed, who will be responsible for all those bad things, which I don't want to see, right? And with that being said, I'm not saying I will completely remove the tree. Sorry, I'm not saying that I will not remove the tree. I will remove the tree, but I will still plan to plant another 5 trees, just with manageable size. I mean, those manageable size tree, 5 more rather than one tree here, right? I plan to plant 5 more trees with manageable size, still in the same location, just in the manageable size. Still bring the oxygen healthy to the community, but that is manageable and it's no more hazard. Thank you.
Okay, I think I did it right. We covered all the steps 1 through 8, and now we're to the commission to begin deliberations, make a motion and vote. Would somebody like to start with your thoughts on this matter?
You're looking at me. I'd just like to, when I was reading the arborist report, I had highlighted right off the bat the second sentence, which is my observation for this tree is it has not been pruned in a very long time and goes on, and therefore large heavy branches are growing over high value targets. That very first sentence. These trees are huge assets, and not only in my personal opinion, but in what the Heritage Tree Ordinance says. And I think that every opportunity to try to keep a tree and make it as safe as possible should be taken before we go ahead and give it, permission to take it down. And so that stood out with me. Also, I was a little bit confused, and it said in the report that it was in poor condition, but there's no signs of any kind of disease or anything. And so I would just, on my observations, it was interesting to hear staff say that you would use, it was in good condition, and which it appears to be just from a layman's standpoint, excuse me. So, I'm leaning towards, to be perfectly honest, giving it a chance, let's get it pruned. Let's see if we can make it safer, and a tremendous asset to the neighborhood. Just a gorgeous tree.
Thank you, Commissioner Pelios. Commissioner Davis?
Well, first of all, I thank everyone that's participating, commenting, and the appellate. The civic process, and it's great that everyone is chiming in. I'm sympathetic to the tree owner. I have a 75-foot Theodora cedar in my yard. I am responsible. There are no guarantees that for me, but that's just the fact that risk exists, and I need to do everything I can to take care of my tree. My bigger concern are the needles and the cones. They make a mess, and I do have to annually have people come attend to the tree. So there in this community, there has been a resounding community expression of interest in preserving these heritage trees, and that's been codified through our ordinance. So, like Commissioner Felios, what I see here is primarily an issue of let's try maintenance before we take any other more extreme steps, and I would agree with the staff position.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Bryan?
Yes, thank you. So I sympathize with the homeowners. I live on a street where there are palm trees, and when the wind blows hard, I don't go on that side of the street at all. It's just in front of my house, but today is not a day to be on this block. That's part of the price we pay for having trees and beautifying our environment. The city's goal is to preserve the heritage trees if we possibly can. And before we agree to take out a heritage tree, it has to, certain criteria have to be met. And then in your case, it does look to me that the criteria have been met from looking at staff's analysis. It's also a fact that you bought the house and immediately asked for the tree to be taken out. And so for me, if I went to a house and there was a beautiful oak tree, I would say, yes, I'm buying that house. But the tree cannot not be seen. It's a big tree. It's a beautiful tree. Even if you don't particularly like that kind of tree, it's there invisible. So basically, it's kind of, you knew it was there, but the moment you bought the house, you kind of filed the application for it to go. So you find the tree scary. So it's kind of a pity that you got the house with the tree that is frightening to you. I don't see at this point that we have reason to say this tree needs to go out. I mean, trees do need to be pruned, but it's not, from from just looking at it, it's not particularly closer to the house than many of the trees in our neighborhoods. And we either say we have a completely no trees whatsoever anywhere. Let's not put power lines up. Let's not put light poles up. Let's not have cars on the street. All of these are risks. That's not going to happen. So I'm for denying the appeal and accepting what staff has decided.
Thank you. Commissioner Mitchner?
So I think it's a gorgeous tree, and it appears to be in good health. It's situated in the middle of the front yard, so it's a reasonable distance from the home. I mean, it's very lush, but I do think some strategic pruning could take out some of the weight and reduce the risk of branch failure if that's a concern. And I do hear your fears, and I don't want to minimize those. But I think it's probably true of any large tree that branches can fall. So if the tree stays, I would definitely recommend substantial pruning, and hopefully that could alleviate some of your concerns. So I concur with the staff findings that the criteria for removal have not been satisfactorily met, and so I would side with denying the appeal. I am a couple of other points, though. I'm there with Commissioner Felios. I found it really disconcerting that the arborist gave the tree a health rating of poor. Since the report states that the tree was without disease, the only listed support for the tree's health seems to be that the tree is fairly large and it hasn't been pruned sufficiently. So in that arborist's mind, I don't know, they call that poor health is stood out to me. And then one final comment, I do want to commend the applicant for a willingness to plant 5 trees as a replacement. I don't know if that's the direction that this is headed, but I do appreciate the offer to plant numerous replacement trees.
Thank you. Well, I think you all said this as well or better than I could. I too agree that the criteria for removal in the heritage tree ordinance have not been met. And I have my own personal experience with the 120-foot redwood tree. For me, the pleasure of enjoying the salamanders and the birds and the growth and everything outweighed the sheer amount of maintenance work I had to do to keep the tree. So I will also be supporting staff's recommendation to deny the appeal. I think we're ready for a motion with someone like that.
I can do vote counting pretty good, so I will go ahead and make a motion to uphold the staff decision and deny the removal of one heritage tree at 1569 Allison.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. I think we're ready for a vote, Allison.
Okay, Commissioner Mitchner.
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Felios.
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis.
Yes.
Chair Summer.
Yes, thank you. All right. I think we're ready to move to item 5.2, but before that happens, I want to let everyone know that I will be recusing myself from the discussion of the heritage tree appeal in item 5.2 due to the proximity of my personal residence to 697 Pettis Avenue. So I'm planning to leave the room. I'll be in the committee chambers where I'm not involved. And the chair will turn to Vice Chair Davis. So here I'll do that.
Yeah.
The weapon. And I'll return after item 5.2, and I'm planning to watch it while I'm in there.
Thank you, Chair Summers. Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Davis. I'm the vice chair, and with the chair's refusal, I will moderate the next session, which is item 5.2. Just again, to reiterate the process here, staff will present a report. The appellant will have 10 minutes to speak or present and/or present. The applicant will have 10 minutes to speak and present. Then the commission will have the opportunity to ask questions of anyone that's spoken, staff, appellant, or applicant. Then we will take comments from the public. Allison, do you have a sense of how many people are wishing to speak?
I only have one with a raised hand in the room.
Okay.
Two. If anyone online wants to speak on Pettis, if you could raise your hand now so we could get a count. I have 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 people and a total of 10 online, so I'd say the max we would have would be 10.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll leave the 3-minute limit, no more than 3 minutes. And if people have substantially articulated the things you'd want to say, you can go ahead and agree with those. We'll then close public comment. The appellant will have 2 additional minutes. The applicant will have 2 additional minutes to make final comments, and then the commission will deliberate and potentially make a motion and vote. So with that, we have the staff report.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. So this particular application is regarding 697 Pettis Avenue. You can see on the overview shot here in the top right-hand corner is the tree in question. It's a little bit difficult to differentiate, but if you follow that driveway up, you can see the garage on the right there. And then that big, large green mass is the tree in question that we're talking about. So get into the particulars on the tree. The tree itself, Sequoia sempervirens, coast redwood tree, has a 51-inch diameter when measured at shoulder height. Has approximately 80 feet in overall height to itself. We judge the tree to be in fair health. One of the concerns we had was the limited amount of foliage that typically on an ideal or a healthy redwood, we're seeing a little bit more foliage. Understanding that the owner has pruned it a little bit the last 3 or 4 years, that may be part of the reason that the canopy is a little bit thinner than we would have expected as well. And then beyond that, overall, we're seeing structures fair. Again, not too many issues specifically, other than when we tend to get redwoods that are more open like this, where they don't have a nice dense canopy, they tend to be more prone to wind sail. And that's where part of the problem may come in as well with some of the breakage, is just that they're more exposed to the wind effects that are coming along. I would also point to kind of the 2 lower branches on the right-hand side that look like they might be a little bit overextended compared to the rest of the canopy. On the application itself, the applicant listed that the tree is growing in close proximity to structures and causing damage or will in the near future. In particular, they mentioned damage to the garage structure and foundation. So the first couple photographs we have here, you can see the tree trunk itself is probably about 5 feet from the structure itself, probably only about a foot or 2 of clearance from the eave if you look at the photo on the right-hand side. And then ultimately, I would also use that both photos. You can see with what we call the root flare, where the trunk comes down and starts to flare into the ground plane. You can see that root flare actually is right up against the structure at this point, that there is very little, if any, clearance from that root flare. So as a result of that, here's some representative photographs of kind of, whoops, we lost it. Thank you. Of the interior of the garage that were provided by the property owner or that we took while we were there working with the property owner. You can see some very significant cracking. Unfortunately, I don't have any photographs that show that, I'll say, kind of ground plane itself to where you can see any lifting, but there is some displacement. We are seeing some lifting to that foundation as well. So overall, our determination was to go ahead and allow for removal for the following reasons, because again, that root flare and roots have displaced and damaged the foundation and ground structure or garage structure, excuse me. Root pruning, our feeling is root pruning will compromise both health and structure of the tree. That root flare that we talk about is ultimately one of the most sensitive portions of a tree. That's where we typically have problems with irrigation, root pruning, or otherwise, just introducing new decay into the tree. So that's a concern with root pruning that close, is that it may create a decay column that spreads up on the interior of that tree, further weakening it. Last thing we were looking at was that the existing canopy is less than ideal, which again, 50 to 60% of what we feel would be a healthy canopy. Again, some of that may be explained by the property owner and some of the pruning work that they have done. Otherwise, we did not really identify any pest or disease that really made us believe that that was the reason. Potential that it is caused by drought. Last 2 years, we're seeing a lot of recovery in our trees, given the rains we've had the last 2 seasons. But not all trees are showing that recovery yet. So if this tree was already stressed because of drought or otherwise, now we're pruning it a little bit more than we typically would want to. That's just going to exacerbate that stress and make it a little bit more challenging. So those were our findings.
Thank you very much. Now the appellant has 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes. And I'll ask all the speakers if you're not required to, but it'd be helpful if people could identify themselves with this.
I'm Leslie Friedman. Hello, commissioners. Hello, city staff and members of the whole community. Slide, change the slide, please.
Allison, oh, you're busy, sorry.
My slides. Please don't deduct my time while it's getting the technical advice.
So next one.
Well, no.
Oh. Daniel, you want me to just fill mine there?
I could sing a little song. I really don't want to start without having the first 2 slides appeared. That's slide number 1 when I'm saying hello to you.
We'll start your time.
Okay, thank you. And let's have the next slide, please. Thank you. Walking in the neighborhood, my shoelace came undone. I knelt to the sidewalk to tie it and saw a sign placed very low on a wall. A heritage tree would be removed from this property. The sign was actually signed by Mr. Hansen. If not for the shoelace, I would never know that the city was going to kill this majestic tree. Why did I make an appeal? All I had to do was see the tree. It's the tallest in the neighborhood, among the tallest in the city. Could you look at that tree and think, oh, I got to get rid of that doggone tree? No. It adds significant character to the neighborhood and has important cultural value. The arborist I consulted each said it was healthy. It was in good condition. It could be almost 100 years old, plus or minus. Next slide, please. It's an emblem of our city's history and a treasured icon of California. It's the keystone of its ecosystem that lives around and on it. Providing habitat for local fauna, it adds structure and shade for flora. It would take over 100 years to grow something remotely similar, and given climate change, it is not likely that a young tree could thrive as this well-established one does. Young trees of various species need more water than an older tree like this one, because the redwood has a great root that goes straight down to the water table about 13 feet down. New slide, please. This tree is in Shoreline West. It is a prized heritage tree of our community. What you see is part of its middle. Oh, you missed one. Okay, not going to see the middle. It has survived earthquakes and windstorms, probably due to its well-established root system. It has weathered our lengthy drought that has taken a toll on so many other trees. Here is the top. Okay, that's the middle. You saw the top already. Here's the top as seen from a few blocks away. To be around a great tree is calming and inspiring. In spite of the grandeur of having a redwood on his property, Mr. Ahuja, I hope I'm not murdering your last name, plans to kill the tree. After all, he says the tree behaved badly by lifting a corner of the garage. Naughty tree. Let's kill it. Inspecting before buying, Mr. Ahuja had to see the giant redwood and had to notice the non-conforming, non-reinforced slab concrete of the not maintained and not used garage. It has no foundation. The tree may not have lifted the garage. The city's pictures do not show it. No one forced him to buy the property. He bought it in 2019. Mr. Ahuja has now owned it for 5 years. If the cracks are so annoying, why has nothing been done to fix cracks in the floor and wall of the garage? He could have bought flexible concrete crack filler. Instead, he thought he'd kill the tree. Next slide, please. We can assume he wants to build where the tree is and tear down or renovate the garage. In fact, we do not have to assume. It is the second sentence in Mr. Ahuja's arborist report. The existing garage could be remodeled as a dwelling and, quote, prompting the need for this tree protection report. It was Sunday when I saw the heritage tree removal sign. I called on Monday, left a message with my phone number that I wanted to ask about appealing and that the sign was too low to be seen. Mr. Hansen called me back on Friday. He told me the appeal will never work. It would cost me a lot of time and money. Forget the appeal, the tree will be removed. He said they had to kill the tree because they cannot cut the tree's roots because that would destabilize the tree. It could fall over in a windstorm and hurt someone or the property. Well, then why cut the roots? To make a reason or remove the tree, the sign was put up on a stake by the wall. New slide, please. The garage. It is a short driveway off Snow Street. The form announcing that the redwood tree would be killed has a big space for condition of the tree. No one wrote anywhere about the tree's condition. Instead, the owner or arborist filled in reasons to kill this healthy tree. Reasons: the tree's roots had lifted the back corner of the garage and cracked the floor and wall of the garage. There is no view of a lifted corner and no proof that the cracks are from the tree roots. New slide. The floor of the garage is crumbly concrete. The cracks could be from water or weather, very hot, very cold. That makes the earth expand, contract, and crack. Slab concrete always cracks. These are the city's pictures of inside the garage. The driveway cracks look like the cracks in the garage. I took a builder whose specialty is concrete to see the garage. He said, that's cracks from water. New slide, please. This is part of the backyard. The tree is at the very back of the backyard. The garage is close to the tree, but I cannot see the lifting of the corner of the garage. Maybe it's there, but I've not seen anything like that. The garage has no foundation. It's only a slab. Small print on the front of the city's picture. HTADU. The city was aware of this heritage tree problem was really an ADU issue. Mr. Ahuja's arborist wrote in his report, the owner wants to build an ADU. Possibly he'd turn the garage into a dwelling and kill the tree for space. This lot has ample space to build away from the tree and away from the garage. Mr. Ahuja could add a dwelling and keep the tree. Next slide, please. Mr. Ahuja's arborist included 3 pages on how to care for a redwood and how to protect it if there were to be construction on that lot. Quote, the foundation for the proposed new construction should be designed to bridge over or work around the roots of the redwood for both protection of the tree and protection of the future building. A typical foundation design might be pier and grade beam with a crawl space under the floor. Next slide. There is no reason to kill the redwood tree for a dilapidated, unused garage.
We assume that the owner wants to kill the tree to build on the tree's space and renovate or tear down the garage, which also means killing the tree. Next slide, please. A redwood tree can save your life. Redwoods are the best air filters on earth. They capture more CO2 than any machine or other tree. Their complex canopies trap pollutants. Redwoods absorb CO2 and emit oxygen. They capture pollutants such as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, ammonia, and deadly particulate matter. They shade surfaces, reduce temperatures, cut the need for fans and air conditioners. Shade reduces deadly ground level ozone. It spikes on hot days with urban and suburban pavements. Redwoods capture particulate matter. Clouds of invisible particulate matter crash into the needles, dispersing deadly pollutants. It is hard to catch. A large particle is 1/5 of the width of a human hair. Small size, 2.5 micrometers across. These particles come from organic chemicals, acids, dust, metals, fossil fuel burning vehicles, fires. It does not matter where the fire burns. Air brings pollutants here. Air pollution increases multiple sclerosis, causes asthma, heart disease, lung diseases. This tree can save your life. Next slide, please. Biodiversity is important to Mountain View. This tree maintains an ecosystem. Carbon dioxide drives climate change. The tree changes CO2 to oxygen. A 100-foot tree creates 6,000 pounds of oxygen per year. This redwood is getting taller, it's bigger, and will keep on producing oxygen unless it gets cut down. Its roots stabilize soil, prevent erosion. A huge tree serves as a windbreak. The redwood's interlocking roots protect the tree from strong winds. Indigenous peoples who lived right here revered the trees. They respected the tree's great age and size. The trees were sacred. New slide. A new home in the hood. The owners and developer wrapped this structure around their redwood tree. It can be done. The large house being built next to 697 covers all the available space, except it saved 2 redwoods in the backyard. Redwood trees reach out to other redwoods, locking their roots to stay strong. How will the new neighbors like that they planned and designed to keep their redwoods, but Mr. Ahuja will kill his tree? They might end up watching their trees deteriorate. Next slide, please.
You can wrap it up. You're almost out of
I
time.
implore you to save this tree.
Thanks very much. Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Friedman. Now we will have the applicant speak if they wish and have up to 10 minutes.
I'm gonna read it. So you can listen to it. You can read it anyway. So you don't have to bother.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sunil. I'm the owner of this property. So I'm gonna just read the letter that I wrote, and I'm gonna maybe elaborate on some of the points I made. So, dear neighbors and city officials, I'm writing in response to the appeal against the removal of the redwood tree at 697 Pettus Avenue. I really understand that the tree means a lot to our community, and we bought this house 5 years ago, and we have still not removed it because we do love the tree. It was not an easy decision for us to make. Like, it was really, we do love the trees in the neighborhood as well. So don't get me wrong on that. So I want to explain my perspective here. So the green canopy of the Mountain View is one of the reasons we choose to live here as well. We've been putting a lot of effort, like I said earlier, in maintaining the tree. We have had this pruned almost every year in the last 4 years that we have lived here. Pretty much like, with heavy winds, you would have heavy, big branches fall down. So we have brought in an arborist pretty much every year come in, they would go on a big crane up to the tree and cut the branches, which is like, watch with Mr. Hansen, Hansen, okay, sorry. Mentioned that, so we have had it maintained quite a bit actually. So believe us, when I say the decision was not an easy decision for us to make. deliberated within the family a lot. Me and my wife, like, we debated about with each other a lot whether we should put in this application or not. Right? So that's not an easy. But again, so one of the concerns, like like the other applicant mentioned also, is that the tree is causing problems. The main thing is, of course, it is the damage to the foundation of the garage. Again, you don't see the photos, but if you go inside the garage, it is lifted. The garage's foundation is lifted at least 2 feet, 1.5 to 2 feet. And I think your pictures don't do justice. I wish I had pictures. I don't. But I think the city department went and inspected and they approved it because they did see the damage that it causes. And even with mild, so that is one of the things. But with the mild winds, even like I said, large branches, like the appellant showed the photo of the play structure that you saw right next to the garage. So one of the things that happened was a really large branch came in and fell on the roof of this play structure and piercing it completely. Like it's like like a projectile coming down on the play structure, making a hole in it. And it used to be just a canvas play structure, the canvas roof. So we got the canvas roof removed and replaced it with plywood to protect it. But again, I know based on your previous decisions, I know you what you're going to say about that. But I do want to say that this is really a big problem that such trees do cause. They're so heavy that I would not be able to lift these branches. I would need a saw to cut them and then dispose of them. So yeah, these experiences do cause us anxiety every time we go through the storm. And not only storm, but even several weeks after the storm, you have big branches fall down. So when I expect that with the climate change that the appellant mentioned, that this is going to happen more frequently. So the redwood trees will be more endangered. In fact, with droughts, we expect it with the more droughts that are that we expect to happen more often. These trees will have more and more will be more at risk. So we bought the house. When we bought the house, we did not intend to remove it. We had no intention. We did have an intention. When we saw the garage, it was not in a usable condition. We did want to at some point rebuild the garage, but we had no intention of actually removing the tree and just rebuild the garage where it actually exists. So that was really what we had been thinking about. We've been just thinking about it for a while. We still haven't done any action. We have no urgency on it at all. But it was just as a property owner, you think about these things, right? I mean, I'm sure you all do. So it does need renovation. We want to use this space, but the damage was when we bought the house again, the damage to this garage was primarily due to termites. There's also the walls are termite damaged, and so the garage is it's not quite usable. But over the years as well, the tree has definitely lifted the foundation, and as you saw in the pictures, I mean, maybe you did not see the pictures. I wish I had them, but the damage is quite irreversible. So I mean, as the owners, I mean, we have the right to maintain the property within local regulations, and I mean, and heritage tree designation doesn't negate these rights that we have. So especially when it is damaging the existing structure. So I would leave it at that. So we requested the arborist report because we did plan to build an ADU. We do either an ADU or we just don't have thoughts clarity in our mind what we want to do with that space. We have the space. Either we rebuild the garage or we use it as for grandparents to stay, or so we have not thought about what we want to do. But so we do want to have that space usable. So we did go to this arborist to get some ideas on what should we do there. Given that the damage to the foundation, what was even feasible. And when we were transparent with the forestry department when I went to submit this application, I did not hide this. I asked whoever, I don't remember who it was at the forestry department. I asked them, okay, we want to do something at this space. So is this the right process to follow? And they said, yeah, you can submit this application. So when I went ahead, I said, okay, if there's another department that deals with rebuilding and tree removals for the purpose of reconstructing part of the property, then I would have done that. But the forestry department said, okay, yeah, please, go ahead and submit this application. So we did. So given that the roots are damaging the current structure, I was told that it is, and we did not attempt to conceal this information at all, as insinuated in the appeal by Ms. Friedman. So on principle, we would not have submitted a request only for the sake of building the ADU. submitted it because of the damage to any building present or future at that location and the safety concerns as well. So one of the suggestions by the appealer was also to relocate the ADU to another location. That is definitely a possibility. While it is not appealing to us as property owners, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that the existing structure is damaged. And we would want to use the existing structure. We love the location of it, and we would definitely want to use the existing structure. And it's totally damaged by the tree currently. So yeah. So even if we built an ADU somewhere else, we would still want to use this place anyway. So that's what I'm saying. So the irreversible damage inflicted to the foundation doesn't allow for that. So yeah, our request has been made in full compliance with the ordinance, I think, and it's been approved by the Forestry Department for sure. So my request to you is that support the city's original decision and to allow the trees removal. Thanks for the time to read this and listening to me. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Huja. Appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
And thank you for participating in the process. We'll now have time for commission to ask questions of any of the speakers or presenters. And Commissioner Mitchner, do you have any questions? We'll just do questions at this point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just one question, just given the maturity of the tree, is it possible or likely that there's really been no material change in the roots at the garage location in the past 5 to 10 years? What's there now has probably been there for a long time, and it may not change a whole lot in the next couple of years. I mean,
Yeah, it very difficult because it's dependent on so many different factors in terms of the water that it's receiving, the fertilizer, the nutrients that are available in the soils, those types of things. But as a general rule, I would say that it has likely been in this condition for a period of time. And any movement would be limited to probably 4 inches or less. That would be typical of a redwood that's growing fairly healthy to produce a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of growth per year.
Thank you. Commissioner Bryan?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Felix?
How old is I know you don't know basically when it was built, planted, but about how old do you think the tree is?
I'm going to say it's likely that it is more than 75 years old.
One other thing, the cracks in the driveway. Our whole neighborhood, I live in a cul-de-sac, all of our driveways, I'm the only one that hasn't replaced it yet, and I've got cracks all over the place, but everybody else has already had to replace their driveway. But there's no trees, I mean, just other than the street ginkgo trees.
Right.
There are no trees on our block, except the one next door to me that is about 70 feet. Is that fairly, we were built in about 1955, 56.
Right.
Is that pretty indicative of the homes that are of that age or more that you're gonna have cracking in the driveway?
Yeah, my experience tells me that basically concrete has a useful life of about 30 to 50 years, depending on, again, a lot of different factors. But 30 to 50 years is typically the useful life before you'll start to see cracking and other challenges. But just natural soil movement, as the rains come and the soils swell, as they dry out in the summer and they shrink back down, that heaving and settling and so forth is what typically will cause that concrete to crack. It is not always related to roots. In this case, I would say the garage definitely, because of the root flare, there are some roots underneath there, but I can't even hazard to guess. Is it one large root? Is it 5 smaller roots? It's just too difficult to tell. The driveway itself, I would say that's more likely just natural decay.
Thank you.
Right. I don't have any questions. So now we'll turn to public comment. And Allison, can I get a current count, approximation?
8 online with their hands raised.
And if anyone here wishes to speak, if you could turn on a blue card, that'd be helpful. And maybe just hand it over to Allison.
For 5 through 13 total.
Okay, so. So that's appropriate. We're gonna, ask that public comment be limited to 2 minutes. And again, if someone has said substantially, what you wanted to say, if you could agree with that, and we can, move on. And Allison, I'll let you, go through the, speakers.
Okay, we'll start with Hala.
Hello, good evening again. I'm Halal Shawani. I've sent several actually emails, messages to you all, but I'll read the highlights of what I've been asking and sending. I am here to urge you to protect and save the redwood tree at 697 Pettus Avenue. Trees now more than ever are our most cost-effective solution to combat climate change, provide clean air, reduce pollution, retain water during atmospheric rivers, which we've been having quite often lately, prevent soil erosion, provide shade and cooling effects, mature trees sustain our biodiversity, which I know the city is really embarking on doing a great big strategy for that. It is really important to keep our respiratory health, our mental health in good condition, especially for our children. I sympathize with the homeowners, but I really plead with them that they could remodel, could do additions with the tree, embrace the tree, and have the new designs and incorporate the tree rather than getting rid of it, because its benefits are tremendous and its loss is tremendous as well. So I urge you to consider that. On a personal note, there were 2 big trees across from my house. I live on Bush Street. And the 2 redwood trees, the owner also wanted to remove them because very similar to this, they had a garage that was really next to it and the driveway was all broken. Last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we heard 2 owls hooting. These are great horned owls. They were hooting to each other. This is the mating season for them. For the first time in my life, for 40 years here in Mountain View, I hear 2 owls hooting in downtown. This is what we need to have the biodiversity and the habitat to stay and to keep us, healthy and vibrant, to keep our environment sustainable. Without these trees, we won't survive. That's basically the bottom line.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
We have Jonathan Clark.
Thank you. I'm Jonathan Clark. I basically agree with the previous speakers. I will try to make my comments short. I feel the application and the official posting as well were both misleading. The resolution that you are about to vote on is inaccurate and should be rejected. The posting and the application give us a reason for removal, quote, the redwood has cracked the foundation, et cetera. You all saw that. The resolution also states as justifying removal, condition 1, the condition of the tree in proximity to the existing structure is including root damage to the foundation. But given that the statement to the arborist about building an ADU, this just seems to me an excuse to scrape the law for a construction project. And resolution number 2 that you're voting on states the condition of the tree with respect to its general health is justifying the removal. Yet the arborist report states, as you saw, that it is in fair health and condition. On the official posting, the condition was left blank, as somebody noted. Number 3 on your resolution cites the limited ability to mitigate potential root damage and maintain tree health when necessary repairs will be done to the existing structure. Repairs to the existing structure. Yet the arborist report details exactly how root damage can be mitigated. Quote, excavation can be done by hand under the arborist supervision. And you already saw the quote about the foundation that could be designed to bridge over or work around the roots for protection of the tree and the future building, typical foundation, et cetera. the applicant could hire an architect to create an ADU that accommodates and protects the tree. I don't want to discourage him from utilizing his property, but if you can't afford an architect, or maybe the city could find a way to assist him, the tree shouldn't be killed simply due to a lack of imagination in creating whatever the applicant envisions for his property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
We have Cornelia Haber.
I prepared a speech. However, some things need to be said. I am actually the designer who has been hired by Sunil to work on plans for remodeling and upgrading his property. And we have had very lengthy discussions with all kinds of solutions that keep the tree. And it has been very evident that it is very difficult to do this. So we are basically imposing a very expensive solution or search for this homeowner while maintaining a tree that has become a hazard for his family, that has already created damage to the property. And also it keeps him from making full use of his property. I will distribute my little letter because it's much more convoluted, but this is the bottom line. We have been working in good faith, but we need to have some better conditions. The way the garage is built, it cannot be repaired with the tree in place. The solution of piers and grade beam can work with a raised foundation. I am not sure how you build a raised foundation under a garage. So there's a short driveway, you can't make it a ramp. It becomes a very expensive solution for a garage, right? And then there are height limitations and there are a lot of conditions that need to be met. So I will share my letter with you, and these are my comments.
Thank you for your comments, Ms.
Next we have Nancy. Nancy?
I'm having to rewrite.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll
can
come
you
back
make
to you.
this a-
Absolutely. Susan?
Sorry.
Susan.
My name is Susan Barkin, and I bought my house in Montalona in 1972. And in that time, I had planted 3 trees on a very small lot. So like so many here, I am to protest the permission granted by the city to cut down the heritage tree on Pettis Avenue. And one of my favorite things about living in Mountain View is its supply of wonderful old trees and the fact that a Heritage Tree Commission was founded to preserve these trees. You look at the word heritage, the definition is something so greatly cherished that people want it preserved for future generations. And certainly the tree falls under that category. But it seems really easy to get around this ordinance. I remember when permission was granted to a housing developer to cut 100 trees where the Mayfield Mall used to be. Why even have such an ordinance if it's so easily ignored? But thank goodness the company backed out, Google moved in, and the trees were saved. They're still there looking wonderful. So on Pettis Avenue, the tree is almost 100 years old, and passersby can look up and up and up and see this towering canopy towering above the neighboring trees. Yet this one is still kind of a youngster in redwood time. So cutting it down in its prime of life would be a tragedy for the neighborhood. Imagine school children walking by and craning their little necks to look up at the tree and see the top. They might ask, how long does it take for a tree to get so big? Hopefully, the accompanying adult could launch into a history lesson, describing what this town was like when the tree was a sapling and what changes took place while it was growing. They would learn that once this valley was covered with orchards and delighted residents with the blossoms and fruit. The little ones might get to thinking about the causes of change, what is gained and what is lost. Mountain View has a history of cherishing its historic buildings. You may remember the Rengstorff House was built in 1867. Anyway, it was saved by a committee, as was the Heritage House. So if we care so much about our old buildings, we should certainly care more about our heritage trees.
Thank you, Ms. Barton.
Nancy, are you ready or?
I can be ready.
You can.
I think. My name is Nancy Sturr, and I'd like to start out by saying thank you all for your service. I don't have an easy job. So I had to switch around. I'm trying to take out things that the other folks talked about, but I'm going to just zoom in on one point here. I'm here to support the tree. I would like to see that tree preserved. And I'm going to give an ordinance-based argument for that. So the Heritage Tree Ordinance was established in December of 2002 to protect the urban forest. The article sets forth a policy to require the preservation of all healthy heritage trees unless reasonable and conforming use of the property justifies removal. In their memorandum, the staff points out that there are criteria for removal, but they don't point out that these are also criteria for preservations. Then also that the ordinance literally states that the determinations should be made with emphasis on intent to preserving the trees, not removing them. This is exactly the kind of tree this ordinance should protect. It fits all of the criteria of the 5 paragraphs of preservation criteria. It shows no sign of being at the end of its lifespan. Okay, I'm gonna have to skip that. I feel like the property owner has been a little disingenuous in his application, and I don't understand why the city arborists did not really put forth a report that showed an emphasis on intent to preserve the tree. I think this tree should be preserved, and I urge you to do so. It was a little disjointed, but.
Thank you. We got the message. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe that's everyone in person. Okay, so we'll move on to can I have something? You wanted to comment on this one?
Can I?
On this one? Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I don't know what's the blue.
No, it's okay. You can turn one in later.
Yeah, thanks for all the statement and concerns on those heritage trees. So I fully understand your concern about the environment and the protection for the neighborhood. But I just want to provide some views from our new Mountain View resident side. So we are here. So me and my husband, we only worked for 4 years, and we saved the money to buy this home. Sorry. So before we buy this home, we have been searching for a long time for a proper permanent home for our family. But it's been almost a year to do this search. It's not that easy that we find a house and we can just buy it and move it immediately. So this house is almost our best and the only choice. So we made several offers, and this is finally the one that has been taken. So it's not to say that we really don't like this tree. We love the tree, and it doesn't hurt because it looks beautiful. By the way, who don't love trees, who don't love natures? But I feel like from the other perspective, we're the new resident to Mountain View. Not like maybe many of the residents here who have been living in this neighborhood for a very long time, and when the house price is still low and the property tax is still low. So so now let's say we are not saying that we don't want to take the responsibility for keeping the trees, and or we are joining this community to destroy it. We really want to make it better because we're now the resident here. So but I mean, our responsibility should be I mean, keep our family safe, keep our neighbors safe, and keep the pedestrian who can and the pets who can play in our front yard safe as well. So yeah, I just want to mention about this.
And I think these comments session is pertaining to the Pettis property at the moment. So thank you for your comments, and Allison will have the next speaker.
Is there anybody else in person that is wanting to speak? Okay. We'll move on to online. First we have Maureen.
Good evening.
Please go ahead, Maureen.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the commissioners and to the city. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight about appealing the decision to cut down the redwood tree at 697 Pettus. Yes, people have made a lot of my points about the environment, the CO2 capture and conversion to oxygen. I also want to say that these beautiful redwood trees are a symbol of Mountain View. The particular thing I want to speak about is that I consider this to be a slippery slope. The property was purchased relatively recently. The owner was well aware of the tree, the position of the tree, and as people have said earlier, when we buy these houses, we have to take these things into consideration. We are responsible. That's part of our decision as home buyers. If we allow a tree to be cut down after the property owner willingly purchased the property with the tree in place, we set a precedent. You know, there are redwood trees all over Mountain View. How many other homeowners will want to petition to have their trees cut down? So I think so many people have said other things. There's just one other point I want to make, which is that it's nearly irrational to think of cutting this tree down. I don't know if you've seen the statistics, but Paris is planting trees like there's no tomorrow. They planted already over 100,000 trees. They plan to plant 170,000 trees by 2026. Why is this? It's to cool the city. It's for environmental reasons. So I ask you to keep the tree in place. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Bondo.
Thank you. Next we have Bruce England.
Thank you. Bruce England, Wisman Station Drive. I wrote a letter in about this, so I won't repeat that. I'll just let that letter stand. And I also made some comments on the first agenda item, and I won't repeat those. I just want to say that I found Leslie Friedman's presentation incredibly compelling. And I also appreciated Nancy Storr's comments about the ordinances, existing ordinances related to this. And I hope that the consultant will be told on the biodiversity strategy and urban forest plan will be told about those comments because I think there's some very useful information that could be used for material for that plan. Just two quick comments. Note that when we go out in nature, trees are part of that environment. Should we stop visiting the woods and forests unless we can guarantee no branches will ever fall? I doubt that. And then lastly, if we conclude that large trees are dangerous and must be removed, then by extension, we're talking about all large trees. Entertaining cutting these down would set a dangerous precedent that would seriously compromise our citywide tree canopy. And I absolutely do not support such a direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. England.
Next we have Anne.
Yes, hi, Anne McKillop here. Everybody else has done a great job, so I won't go over all those points. But it seems to me that there is no evidence showing that this tree is responsible for many of these issues. I don't think that that was presented as some of the people on your panel actually pointed out. So I'll concentrate on this. I'm concerned about people knowing about these requests for cutting down, as Leslie so eloquently explained. That just doesn't seem to be the right way to do it. Is it on your website? Also, do you keep statistics about how many tree removals occur and which are accepted? I don't know about that. I think that's an important thing to bring up. And I'm also concerned about the arborist brushing Leslie off. I'm a blunt person and I'm just going to say it. That was a brush off. Is this the kind of person we want in charge? It's like a fait accompli. No, everybody has to have respect for the trees if they're going to be part of that. So let's talk a little about that someday, hopefully. And I also have concerns about the hack job that apparently was committed against this tree in Pettis, right in the middle and so on. It seems like there's no protection for these trees. Who is allowed to work on these trees? Perhaps that needs to be permitted, and only people who have a reputation for cutting trees properly and trimming should be allowed to work on these trees. And so I'm afraid my sympathy right now falls with the tree, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Next we have Robert.
Mr. Cox, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to advocate for the continued existence of this heritage tree. Livable Mountain View concurs with the applicant Leslie Friedman that the tree should be preserved. The application for removal should be denied. The purpose of our heritage tree ordinance is to preserve trees like this one. It is a majestic remnant of the ancient redwood forest that was here before our city received its name, Mountain View. It is one of the last bygone inheritance of magnificent trees which stand sentinel over our city, purify our air, provide residence for our birds, connect us to our past, and give us hope for a future in an era of climate change. The staff memo gives preference to the preservation of the unused, dilapidated garage adjacent to the tree. The implied assumption is that the working current state is more important than preserving the tree. Plans for the garage should be changed to work around the tree. The concept of building around heritage trees is well illustrated by the home construction on the adjacent property, of which we sent you a photo. Here, a large new home is being constructed while two stately redwoods in the rear of the property are preserved. So it's happening right next door. It can happen here too. Our heritage tree ordinance was born of a set of Mountain View values that recognize that tree is more important than leaving a garage exactly where it is today. The owner bought the property 5 years ago. He knew the tree was present. He should understand that this was his responsibility, and keeping and maintaining is something that we all need to do in order to enjoy trees and have them work with us to make a great planet. So I love what Hala had to say about the two owls communicating with each other in adjacent trees. Let not the owls be the only ones that give a hoot about our future. Please support and let this.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Very good.
Next we have Celia.
I want to go ahead. You got muted.
All right. Hi, I'm Celia Paymer, also a representative of Green Spaces Mountain View. And I'm advocating to keep the tree. I think my comments from before still hold, so I won't repeat them, but we are responsible when we buy a property for what is already on it. And while I believe in the natural side and our responsibility to take care of the earth, I hear the owner's frustration, but it is part of property ownership. For instance, I own part of a creek and I cannot build in the creek. Valley Water definitely would not allow that. And there's PG&E easements, there's all sorts of easements. And our city has basically decided that the tree also gets an easement. And that's part of what we take on when we purchase a property. And it sort of sounds oddly like the garage is done. The damage has been done. And while unfortunate, we don't take a punitive corporal punishment take on how we treat trees, I don't think. I don't think they should be punished for what they've done in their growth in the past. We should look forward to developing in a way that embraces what's already there and maybe takes a creative approach and sees maybe that is the new place for the play structure or something like that. I can't speak to that, but there's parts of our property we can't build on and do whatever we want, and that's true in many ways, and this is just one of them. Thank you.
Next we have Rashmi.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks. I also support leaving the tree standing as it is. And I agree with all the other reasons given and all the environmental and health benefits of the tree. And I think a lot of people, I was planning on speaking to some of the points that the homeowner made about reasons for removing it, but I think those were covered. I guess the one thing I would say about property ownership in Mountain View is while we do have the ability to do certain things with our property because of this ordinance was established to recognize that the benefits of the trees to the community are so great that no one individual should be able to make the decision on their removal. And here we are, many, many individuals sharing our perspective and making this a joint decision to not remove the tree. So if we want to keep this ordinance and keep the spirit of the ordinance, then we have to listen to the decision of the community and keep it standing. That's the reason we have this ordinance. So again, I don't have much else to say. I agree with everything else that was brought up in terms of protecting the tree. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rashmi.
Next, we have Maya.
Hello, everyone. I would like to acknowledge that we are on stolen land. This land rightfully belongs to the Ohlone people. And, you know, before colonization, there was no such thing as cutting down trees. Okay, as somebody who has been studying the Ohlone people for the past few months, I can tell you that they really depended on the trees for everything, for food, for medicine, for tools, for materials to build their houses. And they had a relationship of deep respect, symbiosis, and reciprocity with the trees. And they understood that they are our greatest guardians. They are our greatest allies. So if we look towards our ancestors for answers, they will tell us that we need to preserve the trees. And yeah, if we have any hope of reversing just a fraction of the destruction that we've caused to our Mother Earth, we need to protect every single tree possible. Thank you.
Maya?
Next, we have Leslie.
Yes, hi. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. A lot of great points have been made here. I'm here to just speak up in support of the tree. I agree with everything that's already been said. I wanted to just add in that I'm a somewhat recent arrival in Mountain View. I own a property here for the last 10 years, and we have a beautiful oak tree here. And I would never dream of trying to cut it down if it were impeding on my structures. My garage was built in the 50s, and there are numerous cracks throughout the entire foundation. I'm not blaming any of the trees around there. It's an old garage, and I have to deal with that. My house itself, the foundation heaves and moves with the rains, and that's just part of something I've learned living here in Mountain View. The soil will swell and whatnot over time. And all of these things are, these are structures that are temporary here, but the trees have such a long life here and they add so much to the community. This particular tree, I remember walking around with my kids, walking into the neighborhood and looking at that tree and marveling at how beautiful it was and how big it was. And I think it would be a big shame for us to prioritize the structures that we have built on the land over the natural growth patterns of these trees. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
I don't see any more hands, but I did see a Louise Katz going up and down. So I'm going to see if Louise wants to speak.
This is Bruce. I think you had me on mute.
Did Louise? There we go.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Louise. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry, I have a very unstable internet connection here in the heart of Silicon Valley. Yes, to the prior speakers as to the value of the trees, I just wanted to comment that I understand the arborist has to describe the tree, but visual perfection really should not be the standard by which we destroy heritage trees. I also wanted to mention that I don't think there's been enough discussion about the suggestion that an ADU can be lifted with piers that would then bridge over any root structure. And the fact that the owner really doesn't want a garage, they want an ADU, which is wonderful. But the point is they're going to be running water, gas, and electrical to this unit. So it seems to me there is not going to be any great value in a crumbling old 60 or 70-year-old slab of concrete. That shouldn't be the issue of the condition of the slab. Should also not be dispositive because there you can easily fix the new structure by raising it up. I also wanted to comment that we have a beautiful Hollywood juniper that was next to our sidewalk, next to our gas and our garage, et cetera, that was lifting up the sidewalk tremendously. And an arborist said it's probably the roots are pushing up the soil, but they're not pushing up the sidewalk. And sure enough, we took away the sidewalk. There was plenty of soil. We could level it perfectly, and none of the roots were disturbed. So again, I think there's a lot of creative options for the owner to explore. And I would hope that if this council does not allow the tree to be taken down, that they will utilize some of these creative options. They'll have their ADU and we will have a heritage tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. I think that concludes the comments. Okay, thank you for all those that have commented. We're going to close public comment and let the appellant have an additional 2 minutes to follow up on anything you'd like to say before we give the applicant 2 minutes.
This is supposed to be my rebuttal, and I really feel as though, well, you've heard a lot of other people now. I'm feeling like I've already said these things. However, I want to point out that Mr. Ahuja said that he did not have any intent in mind when they first moved there or first after they bought it. The report by the arborist in San Carlos, the final report was dated maybe June 6th of 2023, very early in June. So these plans were not that recent. He hired an arborist for all of these purposes. And as I quoted to you from his report, that arborist was very careful about instructing how to care for the redwood tree and the kind of construction they could do. The owner has said that the garage might be useful for when the grandparents want to come and visit. I'm sorry, the garage is really crumbling, and it's not because of the roots. It's just old slab concrete. And one of the people who was not able to be here, Jim Zahorsky, wrote a letter to you saying that exactly which one of the other speakers said that his sidewalk, his garage, everybody on his street was having the same issue. And that's just it. You know, I'm delighted to hear people being so observant of the importance of what these trees do for us. And one tree, somebody might say, one tree, so what? If that tree gets cut down, you will hear thunderous sounds of other people knocking their trees down. I want to add one more thing. A couple thousand years ago, there was a very wise man who said, if not now, when? And that's what I want to say to you too. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Friedman. Now, Mr. Hu, you have a few minutes if you'd like.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, there have been comments about that yes, I support. I had the arborist report done last year. We've been thinking about this what to do with this space for a couple of years now. That is a true thing. But it is, we always, our intention had never been to really take this tree down. We had the arborist report done in 23. We only submitted this request in 24. A year later, we've been debating this. Believe me, we have been debating this issue within the family for a while. So it has been a really, really difficult decision to submit this application. It was negative. We've been maintaining this, as I told you earlier, we've been maintaining this tree as well. We love trees as well. So I totally get the, you know, I totally also echo the sentiments of the community. And I kind of, you know, I concur with that as well. But it was not an easy decision. At this point, you know, we've been consulting with the designer, with the arborist, and we were told that it was really difficult to kind of, you know, build something there, with the tree being so close to the structure and damaging and lifting up the floor. So yeah, so that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Okay, thank you, everyone. I want applicant, thanks to the many people that spoke. And this commission received over 35 communications, and just to let everyone know, those are all read. They may not be responded to, but we do hear those inputs. So with that, we will now begin commission deliberations. And did I see a willing hand to start?
So I'll kick it off. So thank you, everybody, for all of your feedback. As our vice chair said, we read everything very carefully. We take these all very, very seriously, tree by tree. So in this case, I lean slightly towards accepting the appeal, though I'll be interested to hear what other commissioners have to say. I think that the tree likely meets one of the conditions for removal, that being the possible interference of the roots with the ability to construct improvements. However, Section 3235 of the City Code specifies that a single removal criterion is just a minimum, and that additional criteria shall be considered in rendering decision, with the emphasis on preserving heritage trees. So in this case, additional criteria include the maturity, the majestic stature, and the visual impact on the neighborhood. The tree's estimated to be 80 feet high, perhaps 70 years old or older, and it appears to be in fair to good health. It's visible for several blocks in most directions. It definitely stands out in the neighborhood. It definitely contributes to the scenic beauty of that local area of the city. I think it's difficult, or at least for me, it was difficult to assess the level of damage to the garage floor through the photos because the lengths and depths of cracks are difficult to ascertain. But my hunch is that given the age of the tree, is that the cracks have probably been there for many years and probably would not likely worsen materially in the near future. Interestingly, for me, the arborist report reads as somewhat open to keeping the tree.
Yes.
It states, I would probably recommend removal of the tree to prevent further damage to the existing garage or future construction. However, if the tree is to be retained, it should be protected during construction. Additionally, that arborist report goes on to say, and this was shared by our appellant, that if there is new construction, the foundation should be designed to, quote, bridge over or work around the roots of the redwood for both protection of the tree and protection of the future building. So just even from that report, it does seem that there are possible workarounds to preserve the tree. Just a side note, if this tree were significantly damaging the main residence, I might have a different perspective, but that's not the case here. Those are my initial thoughts. Again, I would lean towards accepting the appeal and allowing the tree to remain. And our city process also says that if circumstances change materially in, I guess, a couple of years, this would be difficult. But for now, that would be mine.
Would you like to go next?
Sure, no, I'm happy to jump in. I agree with what Commissioner Mitchell says, and the last point about if this was the house that was being damaged, my thought processes would be completely different. Yes. However, in this case, it's basically an old garage versus an old tree. But it's not the same kind of old because the garage was put there when the tree was already there. So I cannot weigh the importance of an old unused garage versus the importance of a heritage tree that we are basically it's our job to try to protect those trees if we possibly can. Our ordinance talks about the reasonable use of the property for the property owner. And having gone to the property to look at it, having read everything that we were given both by the public and by staff, it seems to me that there is a reasonable use of the property where an ADU can be used, where a new garage can be built. It doesn't have to be in that precise spot, which you might say 50 years ago or whenever the house was built, they put the garage in the wrong place. There was a tree there. You shouldn't put the garage right where the tree is. I don't think it's appropriate to take out a heritage tree. In favor of a garage that is not being used and that doesn't absolutely need to be there. It's true that the driveway is there, but driveways have been moved in the past. Just to do some background research, I looked at the realtor's paper from where the house was sold when it was sold in 2019 or whenever it was. And there's a picture of the backyard and the enjoyment of the backyard and the tree. So again, that tree is not something that can be not seen. It's there. I've heard the main whether an ADU is to be built or not, it's about that garage. And I think there are other ways to build garages. There are other places to build garages. There's other possibilities that I'm not a designer. So I'm leaning very much towards preserving the tree. And I will say I'm not an arborist, I'm a writer. But the tree has been overpruned, in my opinion, and there's branches there that have been just cut in the middle in a really surprising way. So I would highly recommend finding someone who's a specialist in redwoods and figuring out how to prune it. I wouldn't take the current state of the canopy against the tree. I think it's been pruned in a way that not to the highest standard of the profession. So in any case, I am for preserving the tree.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Dr. Philos?
First of all, I understand the emotional aspect with regards to it. Certainly the love by the neighbors of the tree and certainly our speakers. Want to thank all of the people. Commissioner Davis alluded to the number of emails we received on this, and also the people speaking passionately for maintaining the tree and how much it means to the neighborhood. So I want to thank those people for participating. Also, it's Frank, Commissioner Mishner noticed the same thing I did, where the arborist went out of his way to talk about preserving the tree. I mean, to a great extent, quite a bit of that report was all about how you protect the tree during construction. And I thought that there was maybe he didn't come out and say it, maybe he didn't mean it, but for me, it meant why are we getting rid of the tree for construction if they're going, in the report, he is articulating exactly how to make sure that the tree continues to exist, and lives for another 70 years or whatever. I think that although you've articulated, or it's been articulated, it has been pruned. I think it can be pruned a little bit more. There's that one leader that's really long. It looks like in the pictures that maybe it could, I mean, that's an amateur speaking. I should probably speaking out of turn there, but I think that, good forestry can make sure that this continues. And I think I already mentioned also earlier that, or I asked about whether is it just the roots that are causing the cracking, and we're not sure. And I can understand that it could be, may not be. I think that as Commissioner Bryant, Commissioner Mischer both said, I have to lean towards the appeal in the fact that I think it is a valuable resource to the city. It's why we have the tree ordinance. And I think that it is too important to the community to let it be cut down at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Filos. Commissioner Filos, it's my turn. I'm very familiar with this property. It is a gorgeous California craftsman bungalow. It was a neighbor of mine for many years. I was a block away on Snow Street, 1385 Snow Street, for 18 years. 8 years ago, I moved away, so I no longer have any material or financial interest in that immediate location, and therefore no conflict of interest. But I know that property well. I've been through that property many times. In 2003, Jeff, the guy that owned it at the time, who did a substantial amount of the restoration work, put a lot of loving care into making that a really beautiful structure, over 100 years old. The property subsequently has turned over at least 3 times, 2003, 2012, 2019. And I can tell you that for over 24 years, that garage floor has been crumbling. It's not a new condition, and at least 3 owners have recognized that situation. So I really hold this to the realtors for not really being much more forthcoming about what the limitations of a property are. I completely appreciate the difficulty of having restrictions on what you want to do with the property. I do appreciate that. It's we all have property rights, but I think as others have articulated, the community interest here is overwhelming. And as many have noted, I too kind of appreciated the equivocation that the contracted arborist put in, having rated the condition of the tree as fair. It's not poor or very poor. It was fair. It was an average tree. And he would probably recommend the removal of the tree. He didn't recommend the removal of the tree. It was a very, as I say, he equivocated in that, and then proceeded to outline methods to deal with any construction. So with that, I have to agree with my colleagues that I think the interest here is an overwhelming community interest, to appreciate the spirit, the intent, and the letter of the ordinance. And thinking about what the alternatives were, I looked at a situation in Boise, Idaho in 2017 where a hospital was being built, and decided to move a sequoia tree. It was a tree that's seed was sent to a friend from John Muir, the naturalist, and had grown for 100 years. And it was a 110-foot tall tree. They contracted with a company out of Texas that specialized in tree removal. It had an 800,000 pound root ball. And they moved it a quarter of a mile to a city park. And I said, you know what? That's mitigation. That's because you're not going to mitigate the removal of a 110-foot tree or a 100-year-old tree by planting some number of 24-inch boxes. You just won't. So those are the choices. One, which is extremely impractical, very expensive, and probably not worth considering, or accepting adopting the arborist approved tree recommendation and new construction recommendations for the new ADU. So I believe, consistent with my fellow commissioners, will vote to accept the appellant's recommendation. Any further discussion, comments, or input from the commission? And I would entertain a motion.
So we don't have the wording for the motion, but do we adopt a resolution of the Urban Forestry Board of the City of Mountain View to accept the appeal?
You would grant or accept the appeal and reject staff recommendation regarding the redwood heritage tree at the property.
Okay, those words.
Got that, Allison?
I'll have to listen to the recording. I didn't write it down, but I'll get it. Okay.
And you could add at the end, because none of the conditions in Mountain View City Code section 32.35 have been met.
Okay, I'll try it and you just jump in and correct whatever I was saying. So adopt a resolution of the Urban Forestry Board of the City of Mountain View to accept the appeal, deny or reject staff's decision. Deny staff's decision to approve the removal of one heritage tree at 697 Pettis Avenue because the conditions for the heritage tree ordinance of the City of Mountain View have not been met.
Sufficiently captured?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. So we have a motion.
I'm second.
I'll second.
And a second. A motion by Commissioner Bryant and a second from Commissioner Filio. So I think we can proceed with the vote.
The second is Commissioner Mischer.
Looking your way.
That's, well,
Sorry, the record.
I am what, you know.
The record will correct it.
Okay, we have Commissioner Mitchner.
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant.
Yes.
Commissioner Filios
Yes.
and Vice Chair Devos.
Yes. And Chair Summer has recused herself. And I will reluctantly return the gavel to her authority.
Vice Chair Davis, if I may. I just want to recognize the assistance from the city attorney's office here tonight. So thank you to staff for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got a nice break.
Well, I would talk to
Conducted
you all.
business.
And let's see. Thanks for taking, holding down the fort. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to item 6, which is commission staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports. Director Marchand, do you want to?
We just have a few updates to share. It's going to be short tonight. So I'll start off. We're coming up on the city's holiday closure for the holidays. Most city facilities will be closed between December 24th and January 1st. We do have some programming going on, such as lap swim and some other items going on during that break, but for the most part, city facilities will be closed. Speaking of the holidays, we have had a number of programs going on in the recreation division, everything from breakfast with Santa on December 7th. We had over 100 people there in attendance. Those that submitted Santa letters to the city, over 200 letters were received and responded to by Santa. And of course, I know many of you were here on Monday night for the tree lighting. Again, a huge show of appreciation to all the staff that take the time to make that event just spectacular for our residents and our community. It really does take a long time to prepare and bring that forward. So huge thanks. Rangsdorf Park Aquatic Center. I have good news that our aquatic center seems to be up and running as appropriate at the moment. We had a lot of minor issues that we had to overcome over the last few months. So at the moment, we are preparing to bring in lap swim on a pilot program to make sure the pool will operate as we intend. And then shortly thereafter, hopefully we'll be able to announce the date of a grand opening. Speaking of grand openings, you should have received a invitation for the Magical Bridge Playground grand opening Saturday, January 25th, 11 a.m. So we're looking forward to opening that facility to our community. And those are my updates right now, other than our next meeting, our regular schedule is the second Wednesday of the month. However, we take an extra week in January. So our next meeting will be Wednesday, January 15th. And I think that's staff's updates for tonight. Wish you happy holidays.
Thank you. Does the commission have anything to report, or did you want to mention?
Best wishes to all of you and all the staff. Thanks for a great year. And looking forward to another good year next year.
Yes, I want to wish everyone happy holidays and thank you for a great year as chair. This will be my last meeting as chair. And so remember, we'll be looking at selecting our new chair and vice chair at our first meeting in January.
Final comment before I get to the happy holidays is I think I did hear a number of community comments about the heritage tree notification process. And I'm hopeful that that process, as well as the heritage tree ordinance language, I hope that is still up for some discussion and review and input. I think it needs some attention. And with that, happy holidays.
Another observation I have is that this year we've probably reached new heights of public engagement and involvement, and I really appreciate all the comments and engagement from various folks in the community, and it's making a difference to hear what they think. Any thoughts, anyone? Okay, we've reached adjournment.